As a witch and a healing practitioner, I think about and reflect, take stock on my life, my habits, my routine, and the ways that I'm nurturing these different areas often. It is very often that I either journal or meditate or just hold space for the energies, the frequency, and the health of certain aspects within my life. Part of the reason why I do this is because the more that we can be aligned and in a high vibrational frequency and be very clear and aware of shadows and areas in which we struggle, and we're moving towards improving or have better routines around, the more that we can do that, the more power that we have, the more clear channels and pathways we have to allow spirit to come through, to move through us, the more we align to what is best for us. So what's up, friends? My name is Mina. If you are new to this channel, I am a magical and healing practitioner for the better part of 20 plus years at this point. And so the conversations that we have here are typically in that space: magical practice, magical mindset, healing practice, healing mindset, taking stock and accountability, being empowered, being sovereign. We look at astrology and different forms of divination to move and sync with the cycles and seasons of the moon and of the wheel of the year. So if that's something that you resonate with, then you're in the right place. So as a witch, as a practitioner, one of my favorite ways to focus on my physical health, and specifically what I am consuming, is through the means of fasting. I have recently started doing a new routine when it comes to fasting, and the inspiration came from this video right here. I really enjoy watching this doctor's videos. She has a couple books out about fasting and aging like a girl, and just brings a lot of science backed data into her reports. And so this video that I'm referencing here, I watched a couple weeks ago where she was talking about fasting and a new study that came out where, when it comes to weight loss and physical health, fasting on the cadence of every other day turned out to be the most successful. Now, this really piqued my interest because in my Muggle existence, I am an evening manager. So I don't get off work until 11 p.m. So depending on what's going on with that day, how busy we are at work, how many things are needing to be addressed, I may or may not eat dinner until like midnight. And so with some of the other fasting schedules that might be 16 hours off, 8 hours of eating, they may not work for my schedule if I eat before my shift starts and then I'm not able to eat again until midnight, because that would be past that 8-hour window. So I wanted to try this fasting every other day out and see how it went for me. So today's actually a fasting day. So it's very interesting what showed up. And I really, really liked holding space for what shows up in me on the days that I'm fasting. And that's part of why I'm bringing this conversation to this platform with other magic workers in particular. So for me, it's really interesting because when I look at the astrology of my life, when I look at where my north and south nodes are, part of the challenge for me in particular, having a south node in Libra, is overcoming people-pleasing tendencies and overcoming ways that, maybe I just stay quiet instead of speaking up for causes that are really important to me or injustices and some of those things. With that, my North Node is in Aries, and Aries is all about, the opposite. So it's all about being in a space where we can respectfully call out things that we don't agree with, or we can have difficult conversation, and we can do it in a mature and respectful and aware and conscientious manner. And that's something that I find myself gravitating towards often, but there's a lot of times that I just keep myself quiet. Now, food is one of the ways that feeds that. I don't know if you are somebody who has ever put any intention over the consuming of your food, but one of the most quick intentions that I put forth magically was about a decade ago. I was playing around with the concept of praying before you eat. And I was thinking, okay, what would this look like as a magic practitioner? And so what I did was I kind of hovered my hands over my food, and I closed my eyes, and I just became aware of the space, and for those that are regular magic workers, you can easily kind of move your awareness and be very receptive through the palms of your hands of what's going on right underneath them. So their main extremity that we use for like charging, clearing, casting, all of that, because there's energy moving through our hands. So I hovered my hands over my food, and I said something along the lines of, I am eating for my physical health. When my physical health is nourished as much as it needs to stay healthy, I am going to be alerted, so that way I know when I'm no longer eating for my physical health, meaning, now I'm eating for my emotions, now I'm eating for habit, whatever else I'm eating for that isn't directly tied to nutrients for my body. And so I went and started eating my meal, and I was surprised at which point I got a alert in my psychic eye that was like, you're done now. Immediately after that, because I am a fat kid at heart and I love food, immediately after that, it was like, you're done. And I kept eating. And then it was like, you're eating for your emotions now. And the voice kept getting louder as I continued eating. Needless to say, because that is an area that I've struggled with throughout my life, I never did that again, because I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. So for me in particular, it's really interesting, and it's been highlighted quite a lot this week as I have gone through my fasting every other day, where I eat for snuffing or suppressing communication. It makes sense. We have our throat chakra right in our throat, and the food passes through it. And so there's a lot of things that I consume, whether it's food, whether it's drinking, whether it's smoking, some of these things that are not for my, obviously, like alcohol and stuff like that is not for your physical health at all, but that are not to nourish my body. There are many times that I eat or do other things that I'm consuming that are a way to soothe my emotions if I have a difficult conversation that needs to be had and I'm not looking forward to it. So like soothing myself and feeling protected in that space. And it makes sense, because a lot of times throughout my life, I have gained weight in relationships or in environments where I don't feel emotionally safe. And so the weight is like this buffer to help feel protected. So areas that there's a difficult conversation that needs to be had, we don't want to have it. Alternatively, we are trying to avoid saying it in general. There's something that needs to be called out. We really don't want to say it. So we're eating instead. We're swallowing our words. And this has shown up for me a lot. And so it's really interesting because when I've been fasting and just holding space for hunger and emptiness and some of the vulnerability that goes along with that, it's challenging, but it also feels like it's bringing me back to my true self. In the space and on those days when I'm fasting, I feel more connected with my higher self. I feel more aligned with the truth of who I am. And it's making me confront parts of myself that I have suppressed for various reasons through the act of consuming food or different things. I I was joking around with a family member of mine and saying like, "Ooh, I'm serving extra," fill in the blank with, a colorful language. I'm serving extra today. And it doesn't mean that when I'm fasting, I'm just off the rails and just being a total jerk in the way that I communicate. But the filter to not speak my truth is dimmed significantly for me personally when I'm fasting. And so it's been a very exciting journey this week, because this week is the first week that I started doing this every other day. So today is the last day for this week that I'm doing this, because I'm recording this video on a Sunday. And so far, the actual fasting is going pretty well. It's pretty easy because on my food days, I'm really striving to get 100 grams of protein in at least, so there are certain things that I'm doing with that to make it where I'm not dying on my fasting day. This has been an energy that I've been holding space for this week, and it's been a subject that I have been journaling about this week. And doing this really makes me feel like it's a level up, like I'm leveling up my power and my access, like I am doing something brave, confronting shadow habits or sides of me that I have just been afraid to let out for whatever reason, and it's really helping me find a harmonious balance to let this trueness of me emerge, while also making sure that the delivery is respectful or welcomed, or whatever it is, depending on the situation. So our health is very important. Our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health and well-being. And even though I dress in a lot of black, I'm actually a super friendly witch. I'm a super happy witch. And I'm somebody that is a very loving person. And, I just want to have a lot of peace and happiness. And I want to be healthy and all of these things throughout my life. I'm an alt girly. So, you might not be able to tell just by looking at me, but that's what I'm all about. So it was a really interesting experience this week. And, you wouldn't naturally expect that just by fasting, it's going to unlock a certain door within your magical mindset and practice that can really help you become the next version of yourself. Of course, there have been many stories and great reasons that people fast in a spiritual way. an intentional spiritual journey. We're fasting, we have intentions, we're doing, a healing session, or we're doing certain spells, we're fasting for that. So that could be a correlation, right? Like it's something that we do with spiritual intent all the time. But the point that I'm making here is that there wasn't any spiritual intent around this in particular. It was just for my physical health, and inadvertently it just showed up. It was just like, hey, so while we're here, there's certain things that you should be aware of, So I think that it's really interesting. Now, when it comes to magic and weight loss, I have not cast any spells for weight loss. What I do is I really, throughout the years, it's directly tied to my emotions. So my weight loss has always been tied to my emotions. When I feel safe, happy, and things are stable in my life, then my body feels protected and comfortable and safe to shed some of the extra. So weight loss for me has been definitely connected to very root chakra energies over the years. When it comes to weight loss as well, it's one of those clarity moments. We have to be honest about where are the gaps. What is it that is my personal kryptonite? And it is very devil card energy. It is addictive patterns that we have. I really like that junk food, or I really like the salty things, or, I really like that treat at the end of the day. Or, for me, alcohol has been a struggle over the years because I'm always working on something, and I struggle with feeling like, okay, I've put enough work in for today. It's time to relax. And so sometimes having a cocktail or having a glass of wine or whatever is like that mental switch for me that says, you're done. It's time to relax now. And so it's a nervous system thing. So there's a lot when we look at our physical health, when we look at the habits and things that we have these addictions to, that we could work certain spells or intentions around. I know, like, in one of the healing modalities that I do as a Reiki practitioner, there's a specific symbol that is the mental emotional symbol, and it really highlights addictions. We're trying to get a feeling, and it's easiest from this pathway, but it's healthier to do it through other means. So I do absolutely think that, certain herbal remedies, utilizing the assistance from certain crystals. I believe apatite is a really good one. Amethyst is a really good one. Those are the ones that I'm thinking of offhand. Doing certain, eliciting the help of certain plant or crystal or land allies and spirits could be very helpful with weight loss as a magic worker. But for me, a lot of times I'm not so quick to just like use of the earth and just rattle something off and then hope for the best. I typically start my magic from a human perspective first. Is this something that I can do as an ordinary Joe by implementing consistency, discipline, and clarity? And a lot of times the answer to that is yes. And then magic can be that booster. It can be like, hey, we've put a plan into place already. We have a meal plan. We have an exercise plan. We have this every other day routine with our fasting. Great. Now my healing journeys or my meditations or my candle spells or whatever I'm doing is just to be that boost, to help the motivation, to help the discipline, maybe to help the weight come off really easy or for the progress to be faster. But ultimately, when it comes to any aspect of our health, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, what have you, it's a lifestyle. It is a discipline. It is understanding where we are, understanding what we want to happen, and putting a plan in place, and then being consistent. And then finding a good balance of what spoiling ourselves / cheat day looks like, because nobody is going to want to eat certain foods and never have a delicious piece of sourdough, or some ice cream, or, candy or whatever. It's about balance and discipline and portion control and some of those things. So can magic impact it and just help boost it? Yes. For me personally, I would probably implement more of the Reiki symbol, just because part of how I nurture and support Gaia is I really strive for my personal spell work to not use so much of consumer items, so I'm not burning as many herbs or going through as many candles or some of those things. I just go into liminal space and I awaken the different elements and I elicit the help of spirits. And so I do it all without needing anything for a lot of what I'm doing. And then it'll just help boost, help keep me motivated, help keep the momentum going with it. So that's really what I wanted to share today. It was just kind of an interesting week with what had shown up. And I'm really excited about it. So needless to say, as I go through this intermittent fasting, the conversations may shift slightly, because there have been thoughts that when I mull over, like, what do I want to post about? Sometimes it's like, oh, do we want to touch on that subject, or do we want to just leave it for someone else? So there may be more of those conversations happening. We'll see. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this conversation today. If you have any thoughts, experiences, or questions about what we discussed, that comment section is at your disposal as you see fit. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date with magical and healing base empowered conversations. So stay wild and spooky, but most of all, stay magical. This is Mina. I will see you next time. Until then, take care.